Hi guys, welcome to Keep Hope Alive. This is Nadine. We have certified life coach, and correct me if I say your name wrong. I always call you Leandra,
Yeah,
right? And
that's
that's
right.
right. It's
Yeah.
it. I love your name. It's unique. You don't hear it much. It's kind of like my name. I haven't heard it much, but you have been doing some wonderful things for over 20 years, helping people in their relationships and everything like that. But we're going to dive into that for a split minute. I'm going to ask you a question. How many weddings have you been to in, let's say, the last past 5 years?
Oh, well, because I'm older, I go to weddings less because my friends have already been married. So probably just in the last 5 years.
I haven't
Um,
been to any.
I
So, I
think
mean,
it's been five, maybe five weddings, less, maybe four. Yeah. So
that's
not too bad for the age that I am, because when you're in your 20s and 30s, everyone's getting married. So yeah.
Yeah, and as we get older, it's not as much, I guess.
Yeah.
But when we go to these events, we'll see the guest book, right? To sign in, so people know we were there and attended, and they look back at that book. But I don't think as much. Maybe they do. But Life on Record created this fun way to collect those memories. So if you walk into, let's say we got invited to be guests to go to this wedding, and there is a vintage phone just sitting there. We have the option to pick up that phone. We can leave a 1 minute, 5 minute, or 30-minute message. Congratulations. What do you think you're doing? Celebrate. Yeah, it could be whatever you want to leave that message on. And right next to it is going to be like a QR code that they can scan. So they don't have to do it right then and there. They can scan the QR code, and let's say they're leaving the wedding, it's all done with, and they'll just be in the car and leave their congrats and everything. So that is a neat, I'm gonna say just amazing concept. I know I wanted to do that if I get married again. I gotta say if. But I mean, I think it can also go for corporate events. Also, there was one of the kids, my son's football team got hurt, and we used it for the kids to call in and say, I hope you feel better. So I think it's a multitasker program. But what they do is burn all these messages and put it on a 12-inch vinyl record, or
Mhm.
they have this cute little boom box that they put it in there. So you can always go back and listen to those, like if it's a year anniversary or just whenever. So, but it's a great concept. And you can find all their information on www.liveonrecord.com. So thank you for being our big sponsor, Life on Record. But you know what? I'm just gonna go. I gotta get my glasses on because I'm getting older. So I'm gonna just kind of read about you really quick. I know you've been a life coach, and you do help people learn to be honest and confident in their own conversations, whether it's with somebody they're dating or their spouse or even a boss. And that is very important. Like I love talking to anybody, getting to know them and stuff. And then somebody goes, do you kind of fringe up when you talk to your boss? And I'm like, do I? Like, do I need lessons on how to talk to my boss? He's great. He's easy to talk to, and I like everybody here at the office. So I think it's easy to talk, to them. But I guess in different ways, like for marketing and going out there, or if it's with friends, we all have a difference in everything. So you also help people stop walking on those eggshells and learn to have those thriving relationships. So my background, I used to teach how to get out of abusive relationships. So the term eggshells, yes. So like, let's stay away from those eggshells. So with over the 20 years in the corporate world, you have traveled leading teams across the country to do difficult audits.
Yep.
Relationship building with the team and the companies and getting audited is what made those audits run smooth and amicable. She now helps women who have lost their spouse due to death. I'm going to go into that, or divorce, and learn to have the power to love again. Yeah, I want to learn that from you. So I have this wall. I'm not gonna lie, it is blocked. It is built way up high. So yeah, you've talked about, being in a rocky marriage and, having this whole new vision for the future. And it's just amazing because a lot of people will come and say, hey, I have this marriage that is kind of going good, kind of not. How can I make it better? But I think everything comes down to knowing who you are and self-love. Once you know that, but if you have been married for 20 years, you can still find self-love in yourself. We all change.
Yeah.
Anytime, any year, like it can happen overnight, but you got to communicate those with your partner and everything. So, and you're happily married. Yay! And you
am.
have 2 dogs and 2 cats. I'm sure. What are their names?
The cats are Elizabeth and Katniss, and the dogs are Watney and Lulu.
Lulu. I have a Lulu in my family. I think that is such a great name. But
Yeah.
Katniss.
Yeah, she's after Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games. That's where her name came from. And,
I haven't seen that movie yet. I gotta watch more movies.
Yeah. Well, I actually read the books and then the movies came out, but I had already named her right when the movies came out. So I've had her for a long time. She's almost 12. So
12 years.
yeah.
My dog Abby is like 10 or 11, and she's getting older. I see it in her eyes, but more common, and she wants to be by my side always. I think they're all animals they have that empathy. I think, they can tell if you feel bad or you feel good.
Yeah.
They just want to cuddle with you, which I love.
Everything. Yeah.
Makes the world go around happier and better.
Yeah.
But I want to dive in probably the hardest one first. When you have a death and it's in a relationship, that's the hardest thing to, you go through all the emotions, of course, and you have to plan a funeral, and it's those weeks, those months, those years of grieving, and you have to move forward with that. What would be some of your advice how to move forward on that?
Well, the first thing, especially with any death, I mean, whether it's a spouse or a parent or a friend, is giving yourself the space to grieve and not trying to bury the feelings by, going straight into, I'm just going to work all the time, or I'm going to work out all the time, or whatever it is, to not feel the space of grieving. Because, people think when people want to put a timeline on it, like they want to be like, oh, it should only be 2 weeks or a month or 3 months. And grief doesn't work that way. It can be a long meandering time, and being okay when you're feeling down. And so I think a lot of people, especially if they're going through the first round of grief, like I lost my mom 15 years ago, and that had its own like spin. I didn't know what was happening. No one was talking to me about it. And, and when I lost my dad just a couple of years ago, it's still like I was a little bit more prepared for it, but it's still grief nevertheless. Like it's still, so I think learning to give yourself the time, not rush it. That's the first one, is not rush it. And if you don't feel like going to a party or going to an event, like, Thanksgiving's coming up and you just don't, and you just, I know someone that just lost their husband 2 weeks ago. I would not expect her to be at Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
I would say, sure, if you want to stay home. Of course, the people that love her are going to be like, no, you should be blah, 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 and that's fine too.
Yeah.
She can go. But if you truly are just like, I just want to sit and stare at the wall and pet my cat, then do that, and then if you have to work, because people, you have most corporate jobs give you like 10 days. Hopefully they give you about 2 weeks. Used to be 3 days, but some of them are giving you more, especially I think when COVID happened, there was a lot more space for that. But learning to take the time, and then if you have to go to work, like you're like, no, I have to go back to work. I don't have a corporate job. I'm working hourly. Then it's still creating a space when you come home just to be, I'm just
Be-
going to space out. I'm gonna veg out. Or if you still have kids, telling your kids like, hey, in this hour, leave me alone.
Exactly, exactly. And just
Yeah.
kind of
So
like, you
that's
know,
the first thing.
sometimes opening up and just getting it off your chest. Like if something bad did happen, I noticed I was trying to bottle it up, but I've learned no, that's never good.
Don't
So
do it.
I let I let a friend know today what I was bottling, and he was encouraging to me, but it's kind of I needed the perspective from a guy's view and then a woman's view. And it's just part of the healing process. I think everybody goes to, but the more you keep it in, it's going to hurt you. But if you can let it out,
Gonna
you,
come out in a different way and in a way that you don't want it. That's what will happen.
I would never want anything like that. I think people like do not take it to the bar and drink yourself. That is
Yeah,
the first thing.
that
Do
also
not do that.
happens.
Never going to be helpful.
Yeah.
But communicating and communication is going to be have your circle of friends. I've talked about that before. People you can go to. Even though my best friend, my circle of friends, she's in heaven now, so I still talk to her, but I just don't get that response back all the time.
Yeah.
But you know, it's good to have those friends you can open up and be honest with, and then moving forward, it take as long as you need. You
Yeah.
know, I know a couple people right now that have gone through that, and yeah, it was like they want to stare at the wall. They don't want to go out or be interactive, or it got harder for them to talk. And I think, you know, when you talk it out, even if it's with somebody you don't even know, sometimes that's even better. So, but it's always a new doorway that would open up. So I'm sorry, I'm jumping.
No, that's fine. No, I agree. Yes, talk to your friends, talk to people. Obviously,
Yeah.
grief counseling is always available. Like I help on the other part, like usually when people have already gone through like the first year. But you know, there's a lot of places that provide that. Grief Share is one of them. It's like an 8-week series where you go and meet with it's actually a group of people that have had loss, and
Okay.
it is pretty phenomenal.
Where would they find that? Like it, you just,
I think it's just griefshare.com. I would have to look it up. It's been many years, but it's a ministry that does it. And when you go, it's like someone could have lost a son, a mom, a dad, or just anyone. And it's more like not one-on-one, it's a group, it's a group
meeting.
process, but yeah. So and then for me, I do one-on-one coaching, and so that's where we start
Yeah.
looking at, hey, did you go through the grief, right? That's the first question I'm going to start looking at. So I won't get someone on day one, I'll get someone, you know, like a little bit past that. Like I'm not going to go to the widow that just lost her husband 2 weeks ago to say, are you ready to find love again? I'll reach out to
No,
her,
no, no,
you
no.
know, in a year, 18 months, and then say, hey, I've been thinking about you, what's been going on. And so in widows, it wasn't someone that I originally had intended to help. I was intending to help divorcees, but then
Yeah.
widows just started reaching out to me just because, you know, it'd been like 2 or 3 years, and they were trying to figure out like, hey, I still want to be connected to someone. I still want to feel that love with someone. It just doesn't mean that one great marriage has to be the end, you know, the one end all be all, right? We're
Yeah.
always created for love and connection, no matter where we are in our life, whether we're, you know, 75 or 45. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So age is just a number. And when we're here on, we have one life to live. It's how I look at it. You
Yeah.
know, you'll have the grieving process, but also being happy in the later on. Yeah, I mean, there's things we got to do, like traveling and retirement. And what are you going to do? Do
Yeah.
you want to watch all your TV shows by yourself, or do you want to be out there holding somebody's hand and cuddling the rest of your life? that sounds great to me. But just
Yeah.
get out there, enjoy life, and keep
Yeah.
positive focus and learn who you are as a person and write it down, journal. I tell people journal all the
I,
time.
I journal about 5 to 6 days out of the week. So yes,
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in journaling. Yes.
Yeah. And if it's not journaling, I used to color like
Oh
this.
yeah, yeah. The coloring
Oh
books. Yeah.
man, I put on some Enya or Enigma or Robert Miles, and I'm just like, this is my time. It's kind of like a meditation, but you think about different things during that time. And then I heard when you take your hot showers, I forgot who told me this. It does something with the brain cells that you can also meditate really
Yeah.
good there too. So, I think that's where I do the most praying. And I remember when I was younger, my prayers are meaningful, but then I was like, hey, God, what's up? Let's talk. You know,
Does
I
not
don't
care.
right or a wrong
He
way
just
to
wants you
pray.
talking to him. So it doesn't matter when it is, where you're at, just do it.
Yeah, definitely. He can hear you. You may not, it may take time for you. And that's where you have to learn patience. And definitely. So learning patience this year was one of the things I had to teach myself. And I'm proud that I've learned it. And, but I'm also learning another lesson, I guess, but it's going to take those steps to get through everything. But what doesn't kill you will make you stronger in life too. So it's just how you do it and on what time you spend,
Yeah.
learning from what happened. So you did mention you help other couples when they're walking on eggshells. To me, that sounds like a rocky relationship, or it could be in the corporate world too,
Oh, 100%.
where
Yeah.
people can have jobs and they're like, oh my gosh, is somebody talking about me? Like I can hear it. What, da, 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 is my job on eggshells? I mean, it's a fear that people will go through. So
Yeah,
really,
it's people not saying what they really want, for fear of retribution or fear of someone being angry. So when we desire, well, it doesn't matter what relationship we're in, but we somehow, especially I would say, no, actually I see it, I was about to say it's a certain age group, but I see it actually daily. So, but it's when people just are not asking for what they want. So I'll give you a recent example. I work with young adults on Monday nights through my church, and they're out in the workforce. They're on their first set of jobs. They're in their early 20s, and I'll hear conversations like, "Well, my boss didn't let me off work at 6, so I could do whatever they needed to go do in the
yeah,
evening. I always work late." And I was like, "Well, why aren't you asking?" They're like, "He'll get mad." So what? You've made an agreement. You set your schedule at 6, but if it starts right then, right, this kid is like 19 years old and he carries that with him when he's 30, and he's trying to leave work in his corporate job to
yeah,
get to a ball game, right, to see his son. If that a habit starts then, and then we're doing it later, and then we don't do anything, and then it creates resentment because we're not saying, "Hey, I made an agreement with you, XYZ, I'm supposed to leave at 6 p.m. It doesn't matter why.
yeah,
It should not matter why I need to leave at 6. We have an agreed upon schedule. We can change the agreement if there's like we have a project or we have something, that's happening. We can discuss that. But for you to get angry because I need to leave at 6, people are afraid of anger. And I'm like, okay, what do you think is going to happen? Okay, I'll get fired. Okay, that might be an actual good thing because we don't want to be in that job then. Right? That might be the best for
exactly.
you. But a lot of times we let it fester. We'll let it fester, fester, fester. Like we'll just keep putting up with it. And then we'll quit the job and blame the boss or blame the relationship because we were never saying or doing what we needed to do. And so that's what I'm talking about. Eggshells is that we are living in this inauthentic
Yes.
situation. And we're frustrated, and you'll hear it in people's conversations. You'll be like, "Oh, my boss or my husband or my wife or my
Yeah.
in-laws or whatever." And then, insert anything. And it's just building, right? And then that resentment is building, and then we destroy the relationship anyway, when we could have just been the whole time like, "Hey, I'm not up for that. I'm not up for that." I'm not up for that. But
Yes.
no one likes the disappointment, right? We're so used to We want to see pretty faces. We don't want to see anyone angry. So we live underneath the surface, and we're not, both of us are not being honest, right? At this point, right?
Exactly. Like if
Yeah.
I learned anything in with my years, you know, I hate to say everything's relationship, right? Like when
Everything.
you're dating somebody, you have got to communicate how you feel. But that goes for work. And,
Absolutely.
I did a podcast, Being Heard, and I love that one because you got to be heard.
Yeah.
And I decided over the last 2 years ago, I want to be heard. Like, I don't have a fear anymore. If something needs to be said, I am going to go and have an open conversation with either the person I'm dating or if it's a boss and be, this is how I feel. Or, we agreed upon ABC, let's work on this together. I think when it comes to the workplace and talking about scheduling, like you can get scheduled or hired on with a set hours. But if you need to change them for any reason, let's just use this as
Sure.
example. Like you can use me, like my son plays football. I'm a single mom. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a flying car yet. I wish I did, but I don't have a flying car. And living in Allen and going to basically Aubrey Little Elm
Yeah.
right at 5, if I were to leave at 5, that is a nightmare on 380. So
Oh
380,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
the worst. Nobody moves. You're sitting there like that's where you really learn your patience. So, but like leaving, like coming in, I worked with my boss and I said, I really need 8 to 4 while he's in football. And we had that understanding. And now I was like, you know what? He's out of football, this is how it's going to be. And if hours change, I'm honest with my boss. I'm like, now it's just weekend practice until we start up for spring again, whenever that will be. My coach,
Yeah.
hey coach,
Yeah.
if you're watching.
We actually had a conversation about it. That's a
Yeah.
plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, I think in the workplace also, you can't be friends with everybody over the years, past work and you walking on eggshells. You don't want that. It's just not healthy. It's not good. And it's not then to say like with any job I ever had, but I hear stories of it. And it's just the constant fear in that. And you want to be happy. You want to be settled at a career that you love.
Yeah.
You want to go into work, put on that smile and get more business for the company. But if there's negative anywhere at all, it brings your soul down like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, we end up being passive aggressive. That's how it shows up. So
Yeah.
if
So
we're not getting, if we're not being honest and we're expecting something that our boss should be doing, then we start showing up in a less better, in a lesser manner. And it usually shows up as passive aggression,
yeah.
right? So we might not, be as like, if you're trying to win more business, you might not do as much because you'll think, well, they don't value my time, so I won't push as hard to bring in more money. Or it could be like, I'm going to be late to a meeting, or
Yeah.
just certain things show up. And then, but that's where resentment, because we're not being honest, it shows up as passive aggression. And you don't want to be seen as a passive aggressive
Yeah.
person,
You
right?
never want to be seen as
Yeah, but I have seen, especially in the workplace, a lot of passive aggression because we're not having that conversation where it's like, hey, let's be heard, like you're talking, being
yes,
heard.
being heard.
Um, and like I need to switch things, or we don't create boundaries for ourselves, right? We don't create boundaries like, hey, I do need to leave at 5 because I have a daycare pickup or whatever the situation
Yeah.
is. Yeah, I had a boss many years ago, and I think this is probably a lot of people now is, I mean, she had to leave because of traffic at 4 by 4:45 to make it to daycare, or she would be fined, right?
Yeah.
They get the clock starts
Charge
ticking,
you. They'll
right?
charge you. Yeah.
So yeah, but for us, she would tell us like, don't send anything to me at 4, don't be coming to me at 4:45 with something that needs to be signed or needs to go out because I'm not going to be available to you. So we had to learn, right? It was like we had to cut off, but she made it very clear. I leave at 4:45 every day. and her boss is ahead of her. So I was reporting to her, but she had bosses that she was reporting to. They would not ask for anything either. We look at our clock. She's mid conversation. We could be having a magnificent conversation. Like, I'm out and I got to go. But I didn't think of her as that she was being terrible. Like,
Yeah.
needed to get to, she had made it clear to us. And, that was probably only a few years that she had to do that during the daycare years. But yeah, but we see people like that all the time and we don't think anything about it. But I think like, I never had kids. So if I needed to leave at 5 because I wanted to go to the gym,
Yes.
I had to also leave at 5 I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, I gotta go make my gym or I'm gonna lose my spot. Right.
Yeah.
So and you'll see that, and but a lot of people are like, oh, the gym is not important, my class is
Yeah.
not important. And that's where we have to look at the thinking and also have a conversation with your boss. Hey, we have
Yes.
about
Yes.
great amount of time, just like you guys, where you're like, I'm asking for a season. That's the best thing you can do, right? It's just to see.
Exactly. It's a season, but this is, like I'll open up. This is what the coach said, and this is what I got to do. I'm football mom, whatever, and my boss says, I love my boss. I hate, hey, boss. And I love this company I work for. So, but I wanted to go back
Sure.
to a recent person that I know very well. She just got judged at work and it ended up in a dismissal without them knowing. So being judged, I believe this person had a seizure and they told her, because you had a seizure, we are not going to let you work full time. We're going to knock you down to part time.
Yeah.
No, no, this is what I got hired for. I can still do it. Just
Yeah.
because you got a condition like a seizure, it can happen for hours or it can happen for a few seconds, or it's a different, but just judging a person and taking away their position, for me, I'm going to say that's not right.
Yeah.
That's something that you shouldn't do. But I know they were walking on eggshells because they were scared. And then they started treating her really, really bad to
Yeah.
kind of push her out. And nobody needs that in a job frames
Yeah.
mind. And I think it goes both ways with employees. And then I think the owners of the company or your boss, they need to be on alert too with employees to make sure they're happy and to continue to strive with their companies. It's just called teamwork and communication. It's not hard. Plan those monthly meetings, talk things out, work
Yeah.
together. It brings that energy and positive vibes to the table. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so, and then you work with people with love and their relationships. That's the best part. Like, I'm sorry, we had to start with
Yeah,
being
the
on
hard, boring part. Yeah.
the
But it's
eggshell.
very important though. All work is very important because I get a lot of
Work,
questions
we were
about
talking
work.
more about work, but
Yeah.
eggshells are more in relationships.
Yeah. But yeah, love. Yes. Let's talk about love. Yes. What would you, I would love
Let's talk
that.
about love. Love is so important in life. So I know there's many people, and the holidays are always hard. So I know people will take this time, whether they go to the bar because that's their family too. And I
Yeah.
do get that and I do understand it. It's like watching the show Cheers. So we make friends wherever we go if we don't have a support system and we don't have that love where
Yeah.
we go. So a lot of families will get together for the holidays and stuff and everything, but don't ever, I think it's Valentine's, Christmas, and Thanksgiving are probably the hardest for people, but finding a love and having whether it's your true soulmate or just dating, because I mean, it's a great energy. Let's just say that it's a great energy to be in love and have that person by your side. So tell us all about love, girl. I'm gonna shush.
Oh, yeah. I mean, from what I do from a standpoint, most people think I'm a hopeless romantic, and I do lead with that, but for the most part, I just, whether it's being in love or being connected with others, I mean, I am a profound believer in the art of community, right? And the art of gathering. And so whether it's like, two people, obviously I'm like let's go make some love. But in the context of a committed relationship. And
Yeah.
then I believe, like, yes, we are created to always be together. That's just how we were created to be. But when it comes to being in relationships, a lot of why how I got into love coaching or relationship coaching is that I was divorced about 13 years ago. Sorry, about 13 years ago. And so I've since remarried, but the in-between time of, going through the dating, going through the dating process, online dating, speed dating, asking people to, help me out, meeting all sorts of people.
Yeah.
It was a long process. And I think what scared the heck out of me was I met a couple of women, and I've since met more, but where they would tell me, this is right when I got out of divorce, just had gotten divorced, and they would be like, oh, I haven't had a date in 12 years. And I was like, 12 years? I'm like, how in the heck does that happen? Is that, and I was at the age, I think it was like 31. And I was like, is that really possible? And then there was a year, I think probably my 32nd year, I went about 11 months without a date. And I was like, oh, this is how it happens. Like, you get so involved in your life and believing that you don't need anyone, that you don't need to be married or be in a dating relationship, that it just happens, right? If you don't make it a priority. And then the belief system believing that, oh, I don't need anyone. That's how the pattern starts. And so I caught it right away. And then, not right away,
Yeah.
11 months later, I caught it. And I was like, okay, I definitely don't want to be someone that has not had a date in 12 or 19 years
Oh my
because
gosh.
of a
Yeah.
divorce or a broken engagement or whatever the situation. And so because of that, and because I've seen that, and especially in our generation, I'm 44 years old, growing up where it's like, career first, definitely have marriage and kids, but like, you also don't need a man to live this life. And I totally push against that idea because I think we were created for a balance, right? We balance each other out. And so after that, eventually I did find my husband through learning about coaching, learning about mindset, learning about like personal development, that I was like, okay, I was like, I
Yeah.
want to help people not do what I did, because I spun for a little while, but I
Think you froze up, girly. I know, we'll catch on. Try moving your mouse if you can hear me.
but
Okay. Yeah.
I think we froze for a second. Yeah, I think we froze for a second.
You froze up.
Yeah, that's okay. Anyway, I just don't want to, I think for me, it's when, my mission is to help women, definitely I was out for helping divorcees, right? I was
Yeah.
just like, please stop getting out of this belief. And then the big thing is, like, they would get into long-term relationships and believe that marriage was not for them again, right? Out of fear of what happened in the divorce. And then they just live in this quasi space, right?
Yeah.
This little quasi space. And there's a lot of benefits to marriage. I mean, I am Christian, so I do come across with, I do believe that there is ties and bonds to marriage. So I do come
Yeah.
across that way, but also there's benefits to marriage just on a financial, financial, and having that legacy, and, being, not being dad's girlfriend, right? When you're 75 years old, and when someone passes, the girlfriend gets nothing, no matter how long they've been
Yeah.
together, right? So,
Yeah.
I look at it even that far in advance, and if the marriage isn't there, I'm like, oh my goodness. But that's the legal part and the financial part of
Yeah.
benefits of marriage. Obviously, I look at the emotional part. But so yeah, I just don't, I think seeing people just kind of like lists, like, I see them listing. I feel like if I see people listing thinking like, oh, this is all there is, that's where I want to bring them to, no, we're supposed to be moving, we're supposed to be with others, you're supposed to, we are supposed to be spending, we're getting into well, here in Texas, cold weather. Right? You
Tunnel
do
season.
kind of cold. I mean, you do want to wake up and, be hugged by your spouse, right? You want to have that connection. And yeah, I mean, granted, there's the sex benefits, but there is that just emotional, like that physical sensation of being able to hug your husband or hug your spouse, right?
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful thing. I have these neighbors that live next to me. Oh my God, they're so cute. I think they've been married for they're pretty young. They're still on the young side. They've been married for about 25 years. She has coffee out on the patio, and then he'll come and like hug her,
Oh,
kiss her, and then he'll go do his own thing. But yeah, just that simple moment, right? Like
yes.
that's all it is. And so that's what I want people to generate, because like I believe that we're a witness to each other's life. Right? Someone is witnessing you as you're going through your thing right now. Talking about people changing through marriage, my husband is running for state representative. I did not know 5 years ago. I did not know this was part of this was part of the plan. And I have watched him transform in the past year. I mean, like he's this new person, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening. I don't know who this guy is, but it has been amazing for me. I get to witness that transformation.
Yes.
And a lot of people say, oh, marriage, they change so much. We're supposed to change. We're
Yes.
supposed to evolve. And guess what? You get to be the witness to it, right? They're
Yes.
witnessing you,
Yep.
and and he's got a lot of ups and downs, and I'm with him in the downs and I'm with him in the ups, and I just, watch it all. Sometimes there's a lot of stress, and I'm just like, but I have partnered with him, and it's a beautiful thing. And so I don't think people realize that marriage, the people that are in marriage that have been in long-term marriages are aware of that, but people that are just kind of like, marriage is not for me, or it's just terrible or whatever, I think like they just want to give it another, I say give it another chance and see it as not a completion of you, but as an ability to
Yeah.
witness another human being as they make their way through this world.
Yeah. And I mean, going back to what you were saying, it is a beautiful thing to have that feeling of having a companion by your side. It makes you feel good and you feel safe and you feel secure. And of course, like you said, it's cuddle season. That's what I call it. And in Texas, because it gets so cold here. I have to laugh at that. But I love my mom. She's so funny. She's like, yeah, you have a boyfriend, you break up before the holidays so you don't have to buy him anything, and then you take him back. And I was like, oh gosh, that's not how it works. But I love you, mom, but that's not my book. My soul believes in true love and being with somebody. I mean, I'm a certified wedding planner and a photographer. I am around love 24/7.
Yeah.
But, for me, I'm in that dating phase. And I was like, am I J-Lo right now in the wedding planner? Like having the worst luck finding a love. And I was like, I don't wear heels, but what if I ran down the street and fell? Who would save me, or people just run me over? I don't know. Like, but that's how she found it. It was not expected, but she was living in this routine day after day after day. And, we get so bogged in life like that we stop seeing or going out and trying to do that because of our job. The other one I hear is, I have pets. They need my attention.
Oh
I
no.
have to
Yeah.
be home at this time to let my doggy out.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, so just tell me, be honest. As the world changed, there's ghosting. I'll be honest with somebody before I go on a date and say, I don't believe in ghosting. Either if there's a connection or not, just let me know at
Yeah.
the end of our date. If we're just friends, that's cool. That's all I want is
Yeah.
the honesty part too, because you don't want to go back on, oh, I hope they call and this really worked
Yeah.
out. And it's
Yeah.
different on their end. So, but yeah, definitely. But it's good to know that you can sit down with couples and work things out, even if it's like corporate world, talking to them and then helping people who've lost somebody they love. It really tells your story too of how strong of a coach you are. And I mean, right now, even through COVID, I bet there was a lot, of people probably that were struggling and going through
Oh,
hard times.
absolutely. Like I was so grateful. I was married during COVID, but my thoughts were I thrive so much like being with people that I couldn't imagine like being single and then not getting to go to work, right? Because that was like my physical connection to seeing
Yeah.
people. Zoom was like, oh, like, I know it's more the norm, but I still think about all the young kids that are still going into the workforce because I'm like, wow, they're still, they still have their way of connecting, but I'm talking about connecting with people that are a little bit older than them that have a little bit more wisdom where I'm like, you still want to run into each other at
Yes.
lunch or, when you're grabbing coffee or whatever. I'm thankful that there's places that have hybrid. So that's a little bit helpful, but yeah, I'm always like, I always think about the young folks. I'm like, what about them? So
Yeah, that brings a point like networking groups. I hear it both ways. I like something online, but no, I want to meet in person. And you know what? I think both of them are good.
yeah,
And, I have a networking group again. I believe I'm going to go both ways in
yeah,
person and on Zoom, whatever will benefit them the most. But
yeah,
I know when I go out and meet with a vendor, I'm forming that relationship to get to know who they are, to understand what they do with their business so I can communicate it better to my clients.
yeah.
So it helps everybody in the long run. And I think that goes for any business whatsoever. So, but I want to thank you so much for coming on our show. How can people find you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Online, on Instagram, I'm at Frey Coaching. That's Frey. My website is Leandra Frey Coaching, and then on
Spell that out,
Facebook,
girl.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, and then Facebook, I also have I put a lot of my stuff out there too. It's Leandra Frey. So, but yeah, I
okay.
usually post videos, tips on dating, what not to do, and then also relationships, what to do. So
Exactly.
usually a lot of tips, a lot of things along the way. So yeah.
And a lot of things have changed over the years,
Yeah.
I tell you.
Yeah.
So, but I also want to give a quick call out to the sponsors who've made this possible for Keep Hope Alive. And you can always find our podcast at www.keephopealivepodcast.com. You are more than welcome to call our 833-780-HOPE. And you can ask any questions you would want or share stories. And if you have questions for Leandra, go ahead and ask. I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to send her that message too. And we'll get
Yes,
back
please
on
do.
here and
Don't be
we'll
shy.
we're going to make it happen. So, other than that, our sponsors, of course, were lifeonrecord.com, where they're the interactive guest book. We have Bridal Shows Inc.com. If you are looking or planning an event in the Dallas Fort Worth area, they will have all their shows. I think they have January, February, July, and September, but don't quote me on that. You can go to their website and check. And she has so many great vendors out there. So it's very educational and always fun. We have partytimetexas.com, where it's your one-stop shop for any vendor. And I work here, I always slip up. So if you needed a DJ, band, caterer, venue, a fire breather, a robot walking Lucy, or even Austin Powers, we got it. So you can visit our website. We have Miles and Smiles, Miss Deborah Rose.com. She is a investigator, but also she does hand writing analysis and lipstick readings, which is really cool. And she's accurate. That's the best part. I'm just like, my mouth always drops open when I see her work, and she's so friendly and bubbly, and I love it. And she's just a great energy to have. And she radiates confidence, and she's just awesome. Our other one that we have is Bryce Harney. Bryce Harney is a magician and a mentalist. You can find him at brycemagic.com. And then we have Richmond Punch, who is a violinist. He's been in the industry for many, many, many years. He is on some Lifetime shows. I believe he's been on the news. He's performed in front of a million people, but he gets booked all the time to go out there. He's in Dallas. He does travel, so you can book him. So does Bryce. There's a lot of people do, but as far as my sponsors, you can see a couple of the shows. I know Miles for Smiles, Naomi with the bridal shows did one, and then Richmond has done one, and Deborah Rose has. So you can find those episodes too to learn more about them as well. But other than that, I'm so excited you were on. And yeah, I will post all your links on our website and get that out there. And I thank you so much for coming
Thank
on.
you. Thank you. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys. Until our next show, love and light. Mwah!